It's time to head back over to Google once again, and we want to start looking for our photography audience. And as I mentioned earlier, this one is focusing on the one specific location, and that is Washington, D.C. And we can actually expand this out. It's actually the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. So that really includes parts of Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. So we have all of D.C. covered, more of the Northern Virginia area, and the bordering Maryland area. Now, some of the locations extend a little bit farther out into those states, but we're going to stay focused around that DC area. So I really want to find photographers who are in those particular areas. So this makes it a little bit different than the national e-commerce site that we were looking at. So I'm going to start off by heading over to Google and just doing some general searches again, looking at if I can find some blogs, forums, groups where these communities may exist of these photographers. But I want to get out there, and I'm just going to start with general searches. So I'm going to look for Washington, D.C. photography, and I know this is going to pull up some actual photographers who are there. I've actually gone ahead and opened up some of these URLs here that don't actually seem to be for specific photographers, just to have an idea of what they do. So for instance, this one, I hit the button, and this one is actually a photographer, and you can actually purchase his prints here, and he has different city guides to different places, not just in the Washington, D.C. area, but this one is in particular focusing on Washington, D.C. Now, he mentions that he has an Instagram account, so that may be something that we can do is we can start an Instagram account. We could look at Pinterest and see if there's some DC area photographers who spend time there, see the ones that actually post their images. And then what we could do is we could start following some of these photographers. And the idea, again, is that we can get some of them following us back. And that is where we can start posting some more information about offers that we have. If we want to run, let's say, a discount special for our Instagram followers on the ebook bundle, then we could do that. So that may be a great way to get in front of some photographers who are busy posting their work, and they're obviously out there taking photographs, so they're looking for new places. So that might be a good idea. So the idea here is I want to look at not only these sites, but I want to see where else they're talking about. So for instance, with the Instagram, I have to be open to that and seeing what else I can do. He just lists all of these different places. So this is right in line with what the book is actually doing. And I just want to look down here at the bottom. They actually do allow for commenting here. So I may be able to just come in here and leave a comment. But again, this is about offering value too. So I may want to come in here and offer some locations that may be unique that he hasn't mentioned, and then reference the guide as well. So I may be able to do some commenting in some of these places. This is another one that pulled up in that general Google search, but this just seems to be a photographer who's got his Washington, D.C. stock photos. So there doesn't really seem to be a place to really participate here. So I'm going to look at the next one. This is Have Camera Will Travel, and this guy's site has actually been out for quite some time, and he's put together this guide to Washington, D.C. and different places where you can go photograph. And he talks about the cherry blossoms, which is a very, very popular event in DC in the springtime. Photographers and really visitors from all over the world come just to see the cherry blossoms at that time of the year. So he talks about that here. Let's see, he doesn't seem to have any commenting, but it says that he is a travel and location photographer based out of Washington, D.C., but it looks like he travels quite a bit too for part of his work. So this may be something that we could look around, and potentially we could talk to some photographers like this that really put guides together for other photographers and talk to them about potentially being an affiliate for the book. So we could ask them to promote it to their audience in exchange for a commission. So that may be an option. Doesn't look like there is too much else here that we could really do to contribute. We'll have to play around here and see if he has accepted any other guest posts, and if he has, that may be an option that we could do as well. And this is another one that popped up. This is called Washington Photo Safari. And this is basically a company that gets photographers together and takes them out to do little photo safaris. So they go to a particular location in the DC area. And for this one, for example, street photography in DC's Monument. So they go out and they spend time together photographing. So this may be something as well. We could see if there's any way we can write for them and we can get in touch with them and see if that's something they would permit, or they may be interested in being an affiliate as well, since they're obviously here, they have all these photographers that they work with. So what we could do is we could even sign up for their newsletter here, and we could see if they have sponsors in their newsletter. So that may be a paid advertising option if that's something we wanted to look into. But another thing here is we see that we have Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Instagram, Pinterest. So we could also go see who is following them, and we could follow their followers on these social accounts as well, try to get some of their followers to look into us as well. So a lot of options there with social media as usual. Now I wanted to also look for forums. So I'm going to start with DC photography forums, and then we can also generalize a little bit more, and we can just look for DC forums. And there may be some general DC forums where they may have a subcategory specifically for photography, or there may be some threads discussing it that we could contribute to as well. So really think, since we have content that people want as well, trying to use some of that content to get it in front of these audiences is a really good idea. And we have talked about the possibility of having a free preview for these visitors, and that could be something that we can offer to these different audiences. If we are commenting, we can refer people to this free chapter. We can also put this on our social media accounts to help drive some traffic, and also more importantly some email signups as well. So I'm going to look through and look at some of these different forums and see what comes up. So here we have a DC Photographer's Guide, and they are focusing on exactly our area, it looks like here, and it looks like they are putting together resources from photographers news, events, camera stores, rental stores, schools, and camera clubs. And there's a lot of photography clubs, which I've noticed, and here they actually have this listed out in the group. So they have all the photography associations, they have galleries, they have camera clubs, they have photography schools. So this list right here is kind of a money list for us. This is, we could literally go here, I'm going to pull this up and see what this says. So this should have a list of all of the camera clubs in the area. So here we have 5 different groups that actually meet. And these groups usually get together, and all the photographers come together to talk about certain topics. They talk about locations, they talk about shoots, they compare photos, and so on. So we could actually reach out to these photography clubs and see if either the writer could present at some of these events, at some of the meetups that they have, or the photographer or the writer could actually go there as well, and they could just get to know people there, and people naturally ask what it is that they do as well. Then we could also ask if they wanted to be an affiliate, and that may be an option since the photography clubs are really just reliant on member fees. So that may be an extra way for them to generate money. But here we can also look into these photography schools. If some of the students, we could give a student discount, for example, and we could forward them a special coupon code for their specific school. So there's a lot we could really do there. So we'd really dive into some of these categories here. Now, I just want to look for some general photography blogs. So I do want to look for mostly photographers who are, again, in that specific area, but it will also help if we can get some just general photography blogs as well. So in that search, there's actually this top 100 photography blogs here. So I want to open this up, and this brings up this whole list. So this again is going to show us how many Facebook fans, Twitter followers. So this is really, really awesome here. Shows how about 4 posts per week that actually go out to their photographers. And we have Petapixel, Shutterstock blog, digital photography schools. So now this is one that we had actually looked at earlier, 812,000 followers. So this one I know has millions of visitors per month. So we could certainly look into some of these and see if anybody has specifically written about photography in the Washington, D.C. area, and we can work on commenting on those posts. And then we can also go to these websites like this one, for example, where they specifically allow for guest posting, and we can write a specific post about the Northern Virginia area or the DC area, and then we can contribute to them. So then the photographers who are going to click on that are people who are either visiting the DC area or already live there, and that will help generate traffic and interest in the products as well. So this is definitely a list that we'll spend some time going through to see which one of these would be a good fit for us. But I also want to find some other communities. So we obviously have these in-person communities that happen. So we can extend that search by looking at places like Meetup, Eventbrite, and we can see what other local groups are going on. So we can go through here and we can see we have a night and low light photography group, which is perfect because we have an ebook specifically on that topic. So this can be where we can go in and look and see if we can get in contact with the admin of this particular group. So right here, contact the organizer. So we'll be able to reach out. It looks like they're fairly active in scheduling their meetups, and we can see if they will either allow us to send out an announcement to everybody who's in the group, because that's 1,300 people, or we can see if he would like to be an affiliate as well. So there's lots of options here. Again, we can go to some of these groups, we can get to know some of these people, and that'll help spread the word as well. So not only offline meetups, I want to also look at online communities, see where these photographers are hanging out online. So just going to Facebook and doing a quick group search here for DC photography. We have some groups here. It doesn't look like there are huge numbers here, but nonetheless, there are some people here. And it's really about how tight-knit some of these groups are, how active they are. So some of the ones that have a bit more, 200 people, 140 people here. I think there's another one here, 516 people. We can go in and see if those may be a good fit, and we may be able to start contributing there. Even if it's once a week, it's not going to hurt. So here, DC Metro Photography, 473 people. So looks like there are quite a few options we can go in and at least take a look at. Now, next, I want to head over to Google+, and again, doing the same thing. I want to look through DC photography. Nothing's popping up here at the top. We have travel photography. Again, DC is a travel destination, especially for many photographers, so that may be an option as well. And let's see, anything else for DC? I'm not seeing anything specific, but again, I see another night photography group, so it may be something that we can get into. So again, I can go and change this up. I can change this to Washington, DC, and I can see what else is going to come up there. Right here, Washington, D.C. photography, 972 members. So that's a group I'm definitely going to want to take a look at too. So again, I'm turning to Google. I'm looking for the blogs. I'm looking for the forums. I'm looking for online communities. I'm looking for offline communities. And within each of those resources, I'm looking to see where else are people talking. So when we looked at that first site, and he mentioned Instagram in his post, we want to be able to look into Instagram. Is that an option where a lot of photographers are spending time? I would imagine that's one of the good places. And then when we were on the other site, we were able to find the photography schools, the camera clubs, and so on. So just not only noting these main resources, but looking for resources within the resources. It really is going to expand your list. So now that I have all this, now I really want to spend some time looking into each of these resources so I can create my plan for moving forward.